All right, so get this. Cybercommunism.
Hmm.
It's like someone took a history textbook
Yeah.
and mashed it up with, like, a sci-fi novel.
Okay.
And honestly, I'm kind of here for it.
Right.
What's even cooler is we're not just talking theory. We're
Mhm.
looking at actual Russian texts on cybercommunism
Wow.
alongside some English definitions.
Yeah.
So we're getting, like, different,
Interesting.
different perspectives on it.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how like this concept
Yeah.
that comes from, traditional communist ideology
Right.
is being kind of reimagined now
Right.
in the age of the internet, AI, and blockchain.
Yeah, so imagine a world where you don't own your house
Mm.
or your car, but you can access any house or
Mhm.
vehicle when you need it. That's the kind of radical idea behind shared resources in
Brilliant.
cybercommunism.
Okay.
And that's one of the core tenets that we're going to be
Right.
diving into today.
Interesting.
It's pretty wild, right?
Yeah, it's a big one.
I mean, the sources kind of suggest
Right.
that it could, like, eliminate hoarding
Good.
and ensure that everyone's needs are met. But would you be comfortable giving up ownership
Oh, that's a tough one.
of your possessions?
Yeah, it really challenges
Yeah.
our fundamental understanding of ownership and access.
Right.
I mean, cybercommunism argues that, by shifting from individual ownership to collective access,
Yeah.
we could actually create like a more equitable and sustainable society.
Okay, I see where they're going with that. But
Yeah.
let's unpack this a bit further.
Hey, let's do it.
Another key idea is decentralization.
Okay.
So think power to the people, not big,
Right.
centralized systems.
Yeah.
Given your interest in autonomy,
Mhm.
this might resonate with you a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
It's all about distributing resources and decision-making more evenly,
Okay.
with technology acting as the great equalizer.
Mhm.
But how do we reconcile that with this concept of collective ownership?
Yeah.
Because doesn't that inherently require some level of control?
That's the tension, right? That's the inherent tension within
Yeah.
cybercommunism.
Right,
It's balancing individual freedom with collective good.
right.
The sources suggest that
Hmm.
technology, specifically AI and blockchain,
Okay.
can help manage this kind of delicate balance.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine like a decentralized network where communities make decisions collectively.
Okay.
But the allocation of resources is handled
Right.
transparently and efficiently by algorithms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's where things get really interesting.
it does.
It's like AI calling the shots.
Right.
The sources specifically highlight its potential
Oh.
for managing resources,
Yeah.
even like making complex decisions.
Mhm.
It almost sounds like a utopia, right?
It does.
Where humans are freed from the daily grind.
Yeah.
But let's be real.
Okay.
Is this even achievable? Or are we just venturing into science fiction?
I mean, it's certainly ambitious.
Right.
And the feasibility is definitely debatable.
Yeah.
But remember, like
Mhm.
the internet itself
Yeah.
was once considered a fringe idea.
Right.
So the core concept here
Yeah.
is harnessing technology
Right.
to create a society where
Yeah.
humans are liberated from mundane labor
Okay.
and can pursue more fulfilling endeavors.
And who knows? Maybe robots handling the day-to-day
Yeah.
would open up all kinds of possibilities for you
That'd be nice.
to explore your passions.
Right.
But if we're talking about a future
Mm-hmm.
where AI plays such a significant role,
Yeah.
how do we ensure
That's a big one.
that things stay fair and democratic?
Yeah.
Especially given your interest in diverse perspectives and governance systems.
Right.
How would cybercommunism ensure that everyone has a voice?
Yeah. So the concept of democratic governance in cybercommunism
Mm-hmm.
relies on technology to facilitate like this direct participation.
Okay.
So think like online voting systems
Right.
and platforms where citizens can actively
Yeah.
engage in decision-making processes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's essentially like tech-enabled direct democracy.
Wow.
But the question remains,
Yeah.
how much freedom are we really talking about here?
Right. If everything's collectively owned
Right.
and like every action I do is evaluated for points,
Mm-hmm.
does individual liberty kind of take a backseat?
Good question.
The sources paint this picture
Yeah.
of freedom and equality as the ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that square
Right.
with the potential for,
Yeah.
constant monitoring
Yeah.
and evaluation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
The sources kind of suggest
Yeah.
that by eliminating social classes and ensuring equal access to resources and opportunities,
Right.
that individual freedom will flourish. But it's a fine line to walk.
Yeah.
And the potential for misuse is definitely a valid concern.
It definitely feels like we're stepping into uncharted territory here.
A little bit, yeah.
So we've laid out the foundation.
Right.
We've got shared resources, decentralization,
Yeah.
AI-driven systems,
Right.
and this vision of ultimate freedom and equality.
Okay.
But the sources only give us a glimpse of how this might play out.
In the real world.
In the real world, right?
Right. And that's where things get really intriguing.
Yeah.
We're going to delve into the nitty-gritty of cybercommunism's potential applications next.
All right.
Including how it proposes to replace money.
Oh, wow.
With a social rating system.
Okay.
And that's something I'm sure you'll have thoughts on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Definitely. Cybercommunism kind of envisions this future where technology isn't just a tool.
Yeah.
It's like the foundation of society.
Okay.
The sources call this a technopolis.
Technopolis.
Yeah, a city designed around innovation and efficiency.
Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
You're living in a city where, like, transportation,
right,
energy, communication, even, like, governance is all seamlessly integrated with, like, advanced tech. It's almost like stepping into a sci-fi movie.
It is.
But instead of flying cars,
right,
maybe we were talking about, like, Hyperloop systems and drone deliveries. Does that sound appealing or a bit overwhelming?
It definitely challenges our current understanding of urban living, for sure.
Right.
The technopolis concept aims to use technology to optimize, like, every aspect of city life.
Okay.
Make it more sustainable.
Yeah.
More equitable. Imagine a city where waste is minimized. Renewable energy powers everything.
Wow.
Resources are allocated efficiently based on need.
That sounds great in theory.
Right.
But how realistic is it to build an entire city from scratch?
Right.
Based on these principles?
It's a big undertaking for sure.
Yeah. The sources themselves admit that there are some major technological and social hurdles to overcome.
Yeah, building a technopolis would require significant advancements in fields like AI, robotics, renewable energy, and sustainable infrastructure.
Right.
But the bigger challenge, I think, might be like the social and political implications.
Right.
Imagine trying to convince, millions of people to abandon traditional city living for, like, a completely unproven system.
It's like asking everyone to jump into a self-driving car with no steering wheel.
Right.
And even if we could overcome, like, the technological and social barriers, how do we ensure that the benefits of a technopolis are distributed fairly?
That's the question.
I mean, we've all seen those sci-fi movies where technology ends up creating even wider gaps.
Exactly.
Between, like, the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, it's a valid concern.
Yeah.
The sources themselves raise questions about, who controls the technology and how it's used.
Right.
They talk about the need for new forms of social organization and governance to ensure that technology serves the collective good.
Right, and not just a select few.
Exactly.
So it's not just about building shiny new tech.
Yep.
It's about creating a whole new social contract.
Yes.
That ensures fairness and equity.
Precisely.
But let's shift gears for a moment and circle back to this social rating system that supposedly replaces money.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
How that would actually work in practice.
So imagine a world where your value isn't measured by, your bank account, but by your contributions to society.
Okay.
So instead of earning a salary, you're earning points or credits based on your, your skills, your effort, the social impact of your work, even your behavior.
Wow.
Think of it like a giant online reputation system. But instead of likes and followers, you're earning points that determine your access to resources.
And instead of getting paid for my day job, I might earn points for, like, volunteering at a community garden, writing a helpful blog post, or even just being a good neighbor.
Right.
And those points would then allow me to access things like
Yes.
housing, food, transportation.
Precisely. The sources suggest that this type of system would incentivize people to contribute to the common good, rather than just pursuing individual wealth. It's a radical departure from our current economic model. But it's definitely thought-provoking.
It is, but I can't help but feel a little uneasy about the whole thing.
I get it.
Who decides? Like, how many points each activity is worth?
That's a good question.
And what about those who can't contribute as much, you know?
Right.
Due to age or disability or other factors?
Right. It seems like there's a lot of room for inequality.
Right.
And even discrimination to creep in.
You've hit on one of the biggest criticisms of the social rating system. Critics argue that it could easily be used to reinforce existing power structures and create new forms of social stratification.
It's definitely a concern.
Yeah. They also worry about the potential for bias in the algorithms that determine point values and allocate resources.
Yeah, the algorithms are a big one.
It's almost like we'd be trading one form of inequality for another.
For another?
And what about the impact on privacy?
Right.
I mean, if every action's being tracked and evaluated, it feels like we'd be living like
a giant panopticon where Big Brother is constantly watching.
The privacy concerns are definitely valid.
Yeah.
The sources mention blockchain as a potential solution. Arguing that its transparency and immutability would prevent tampering and ensure fairness.
But even with blockchain, the question remains, how much personal data would be collected?
Exactly.
And who would have access to it?
That's the question.
It seems like a lot of trust would have to be placed in the system and the people who designed it. But even if we set aside those concerns, I'm still struggling to grasp how AI would actually govern in a cyber-communist society. I mean, we're talking about machines making decisions that affect people's lives.
So the idea is that AI, with its ability to process vast amounts of data and identify patterns, could potentially make more efficient and unbiased decisions
than humans.
Right.
The sources envision AI managing complex systems. Like resource allocation, transportation, even law enforcement.
But what happens if the AI makes a mistake?
That's a possibility.
Or even worse, what if it gets hacked? Or manipulated by someone with malicious intent?
Yeah, those are valid concerns.
It seems like there's a lot of potential for things to go wrong.
The sources acknowledge the need for safeguards and oversight to ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly. They also emphasize the importance of human oversight and intervention, suggesting that AI would primarily play an advisory role, not a dictatorial one.
So it's more about AI augmenting human decision-making.
Yes.
Not replacing it entirely.
Exactly.
But even with those assurances, I can't shake this feeling that we're like stepping into uncharted territory. We're talking about fundamentally reshaping society.
Yes.
And handing over a significant degree of control to machines.
It's a bold experiment, to say the least. And like any experiment, there are risks involved. But the proponents of cybercommunism argue that the potential rewards outweigh the risks. They believe that by harnessing the power of technology, we can create a more equitable, sustainable, and ultimately fulfilling society.
I appreciate their optimism, but I'm still a bit skeptical.
I understand.
It all sounds a bit too utopian for my taste. And speaking of utopian ideals, the sources also touch on this concept of sustainability and environmental responsibility as a key pillar of cybercommunism. How does that fit into the overall picture?
So cybercommunism envisions a world where technology is used to harmonize our relationship with nature. The sources talk about using technology to develop renewable energy sources, create sustainable food systems, optimize transportation networks, and even like monitor and manage environmental impacts in real time.
So instead of exploiting nature for profit, we'd be using technology to live in balance with it.
Exactly. Cybercommunism sees technology as a tool for environmental stewardship, not just economic growth. The sources even describe closed-loop systems where waste is minimized and resources are constantly recycled.
That's a vision I think we can all get behind.
It is.
Regardless of our, political leanings.
Right.
But the question remains, can technology really solve our environmental problem?
Right.
Or are we just putting like a technological Band-Aid on a much deeper societal issue?
That's a question that goes beyond the scope of cybercommunism itself. It's a question we need to grapple with as a society.
Right.
Regardless of what economic or political system we choose to adopt.
You're right. Ultimately, it's not just about the technology itself, but how we choose to use it.
Exactly.
And what values we prioritize.
Precisely.
But let's not get too lost in the philosophical weeds just yet. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
In this deep dive into cybercommunism.
Yes.
Exploring everything from the technical corporalis concept to the social rating system and the role of AI.
Right. And while these ideas are fascinating, it's important to approach them with a critical eye.
Right.
There are potential downsides and criticisms that we can't ignore.
Exactly. And that's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our cybercommunism journey.
Sounds good.
We'll delve into the potential pitfalls,
the
unintended consequence, and the tough questions that this ideology raises about the future of technology and society.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We've spent the last 2 parts of this deep dive exploring the ins and outs of cybercommunism, from the utopian vision of a technopopolis to the radical idea of a social rating system replacing money.
Yeah, and while those concepts might seem appealing, we can't ignore the potential downsides and criticism.
Exactly. No system is perfect, especially one that relies so heavily on technology.
For sure.
So let's flick the script, talk about those potential pitfalls. What are some of the red flags that jump out at you?
Well, I mean, one major concern is just the reliance on technology itself. Cybercommunism kind of assumes widespread access to stable internet, advanced AI, and blockchain technology. But what about those who lack access to these resources? Either due to geography, socioeconomic factors, or even just personal choice.
It's like we'd be creating a system that's inherently unequal from the start. Which seems to contradict the whole idea of a cybercommunism.
Exactly.
Aiming for a classal society. And speaking of inequality, the sources themselves raise concerns about the potential for surveillance and control in a highly digitized society.
For sure.
Given your interest in autonomy,
this
is probably something you've already considered.
Absolutely. I mean, in a world where AI is making decisions, blockchain is tracking transactions, sensors are everywhere, the potential for abuse is undeniable.
The sources talk about social engineers and social architects shaping this new society. But who are they accountable to? What's stopping them from manipulating the system for their own benefit?
That's a big question.
It's like that classic sci-fi trope where technology starts out as a force for good, but then gets corrupted by those in power.
Exactly. And it's not just about, Big Brother watching our every move. There's also the question of individual freedom and creativity in a system where everything is decided collectively. Everyone is constantly being evaluated.
The sources emphasize the collective good.
They do.
Suggesting that individual desires might need to take a back seat for the benefit of society as a whole.
Exactly. They argue that technology can empower communities, facilitate direct democracy. But critics worry about conformity, lack of dissent, the potential for stifling individual expression.
It's a tricky balance to strike, right?
It is,
On the one hand, you have the potential for a more equitable, sustainable society. But on the other hand, you have the risk of sacrificing individual freedom and autonomy in the process.
Exactly. And it's a debate that goes beyond the realm of cybercommunism. It's a fundamental question we face as technology becomes more integrated into our lives. how do we balance individual rights with the needs of the collective?
It's like we're at a crossroads trying to decide which path to take into the future.
Into the future.
But before we get too overwhelmed by the philosophical implications, let's bring it back to the practical side of things. Even if we could overcome the ethical concerns, there's still the question of whether cybercommunism is even technically feasible.
Right. The sources paint this picture of a seamless, interconnected world where technology works flawlessly.
Right.
But we all know that technology can be buggy, unreliable, vulnerable to hacking.
Right. Imagine if the entire system crashes.
Exactly.
Or if someone figures out how to manipulate the algorithms for their own gain.
It'd be chaos.
It would be chaos.
Yeah. And then there's the human element to consider.
Oh, right.
Even with the most advanced technology, we're still dealing with human nature.
Right.
With all its complexities and imperfections.
Can we really design a system that accounts for all the variables?
It's a daunting task, to say the least.
Right.
And honestly, I don't think the sources provide a definitive answer.
Right. They present a vision, a possibility.
Right.
But it's up to us to decide whether it's a path we want to pursue.
Exactly.
So where does this leave us? We've explored the promises and pitfalls of cybercommunism. We have. But I still feel like we're left with more questions than answers.
And that's okay.
Is it?
Yeah, the goal of a deep dive isn't necessarily to provide all the answers. But to spark curiosity, encourage critical thinking.
Right.
And equip you with the knowledge you need to navigate these complex issues.
I think that's a great takeaway.
Yeah.
Cybercommunism might be a theoretical concept.
Right.
But the questions it raises about the role of technology, the balance of power, and the future of society are very real.
Very real.
And relevant to all of us.
Absolutely.
And while we might not be living in a technocephalus or using a social rating system anytime soon.
Probably not.
The ideas explored in this deep dive can help us make more informed decisions about the future we want to create.
For sure.
So there you have it.
That's it.
Our deep dive into the world of cybercommunism.
Cybercommunism.
A blend of utopian ideals and potential pitfalls, thought-provoking concepts, and real-world concerns.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation about the future.
As you should. It's a future that's being shaped right now. And the choices we make today will determine the path we take.
Until next time. Keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
Keep diving deep.
Dive deep.